The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as High Admiral Zexthara slammed her 6 claws against the obsidian table. The holographic display showed a single human male, perhaps 30 cycles old, sitting calmly in what appeared to be a simple dwelling on the backwater planet humans called Earth. "This is our target," sneered Commander Velkoth, his serpentine form coiling with disdain. "One lone human? The Galactic Assassins Guild demands payment of 50 million credits for a single primitive." Zexthara's compound eyes glittered with barely controlled fury. "Show them the file, technician." The air shimmered as data streams cascaded through the chamber. Military records, battle reports, casualty lists, all bearing the same name: Marcus Chun, formerly of the United Earth Defense Force. "Impossible," whispered Archon Thelmech, her crystalline features refracting the display's light. "No single being could have eliminated an entire Korthak battle fleet." "The records don't lie," Zexthara replied coldly. 3 years ago, during what humans call the Titan Station incident, this one individual somehow destroyed 47 of our most advanced warships. Our investigation teams found nothing but debris and radiation signatures consistent with human antimatter weaponry. The chamber erupted in shocked chittering and mechanical clicking as representatives from 12 different species processed this information. The Korthak Empire had been the most feared military force in 3 sectors. Their battle fleets had conquered 17 civilizations without losing a single vessel. "Ow!" demanded General Krexvar, his insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly. "Humans barely possess interstellar travel. Their weapons are crude projectile-based systems and primitive energy weapons." Zexthara activated another display. Security footage showed a human figure moving through the corridors of Titan Station, a massive mining facility that had been attacked by the Korthak fleet 3 years prior. The footage was grainy, damaged by electromagnetic interference, but it clearly showed Marcus Chin systematically destroying automated defense systems with nothing more than handheld weapons. "Our intelligence suggests he somehow gained access to the station's main reactor core," she continued. "The explosion was visible from 3 light-years away. 47 Korthak ships, along with the station itself, and approximately 800,000 mining personnel, were vaporized in less than 47 seconds. "Surely this was a suicide mission," suggested Diplomat Quenthil, her gaseous form wavering with uncertainty. "No organic being could survive such an explosion." "That's what we thought," Zexthara admitted, "until our long-range scanners detected him 6 months later, alive and apparently uninjured, on the human homeworld." The silence that followed was deafening. In the 3,000 years since the formation of the Galactic Council, no single individual had ever posed such a threat to galactic stability. The Korthak Empire's defeat had created a power vacuum that 17 different factions were now fighting to fill. Trade routes had become war zones. Entire star systems had gone dark. "He must be eliminated," declared Archon Thelmech, "before he decides to target other species." "Agreed," rumbled General Krexvar. "But why hasn't he acted again? If he possesses such devastating capabilities, why remain on that primitive world?" Zexthara manipulated the display, showing surveillance footage of Marcus Chun over the past 3 years. He appeared to be living a completely normal human life, working at what appeared to be a mechanical repair facility, residing in a modest dwelling, interacting peacefully with other humans. "Our xenopsychologists believe he's what humans call retired," she explained. "Analysis suggests he may have been traumatized by the scale of destruction he caused. Human psychology is notoriously unstable when exposed to extreme combat situations." "Irrelevant," snapped Commander Velkoth. "Traumatized or not, he remains a threat. The Galactic Assassins Guild has accepted the contract. 3 of our most elite operatives have been dispatched." "3?" questioned Diplomat Quenthil. "Seems excessive for one human." Velkoth's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile. Sylvex the Shadow Lade, Mordan the Planet Killer, and Kriya the Mind Ripper. Each has eliminated entire planetary governments. Combined, they've accounted for over 10,000 confirmed kills across 47 systems. "And they're already en route?" asked General Krexvar. "They achieved orbital insertion around the human homeworld 6 standard hours ago," Velkoth confirmed. The target will be eliminated within the next rotation period. What none of them knew was that Marcus Chun had been aware of their surveillance for months. 3 years of apparent retirement had been carefully orchestrated. While the Galactic Council debated and planned, he had been preparing. The modest repair shop was actually a front for an underground facility that would have impressed even the most advanced military engineers in the galaxy. In the depths beneath his seemingly ordinary home, Marcus stood before a wall of monitors displaying real-time data from orbital defense satellites. Satellites the Galactic Council didn't know humans possessed. The 3 assassin ships showed clearly on his screens, their stealth capabilities useless against detection systems adapted from Korthak technology salvaged from Titan Station. 3 this time, he murmured, checking the status of weapons systems that officially didn't exist. They're learning, but they weren't learning fast enough. Marcus had spent 3 years analyzing every piece of Korthak technology he could recover. He'd studied their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. More importantly, he'd had time to prepare for exactly this scenario. The first assassin, Sylvex the Shadowblade, was already planet-side, invisible to most detection methods, and armed with molecular disruption blades capable of slicing through any known material. The second, Mordan the Planet Killer, remained in orbit aboard a ship equipped with enough firepower to crack a moon. The third, Kriya the Mind Ripper, was something far worse, a psychic entity capable of destroying minds from vast distances. Against any normal opponent, it would have been overkill. But Marcus Chun had stopped being a normal opponent the day he'd watched 800,000 innocent people die because he'd hesitated for 3 seconds too long. He activated his armor, not the crude environmental suits humans typically used, but something far more sophisticated. Powered by a miniature antimatter reactor and equipped with shields adapted from Korthak designs, it made him effectively invisible to most forms of detection while providing protection against anything short of a direct nuclear strike. Time to remind them why humans don't make good targets, Marcus said quietly, stepping into the teleportation chamber he'd built using recovered alien technology. The hunt was about to begin, and the hunters had no idea they were already being hunted. Above the planet's surface, 3 of the galaxy's most feared killers prepared to eliminate what they believed was a traumatized human hiding on a primitive world. What they were actually about to encounter was something the Galactic Council had never prepared them for. A human who had learned to fight like them, think like them, and kill more efficiently than any of them had ever imagined possible. Sylvex the Shadowblade materialized inside Marcus Chen's repair shop at exactly 0347 local time, when human biorhythms typically reached their lowest point. His form was barely visible even to advanced sensors, a shifting amalgamation of darkness and razor-sharp edges that had successfully infiltrated the most secure facilities in the galaxy. The shop appeared exactly as surveillance had indicated. Cluttered workbenches, primitive tools, mechanical components scattered across surfaces. No signs of advanced technology, no indication that the target possessed anything more dangerous than basic repair equipment. Sylvex extended his consciousness, searching for the thermal signature of a sleeping human. According to intelligence reports, Marcus Chun should be unconscious in the living quarters above the shop. The assassin's molecular disruption blades extended silently from his shadowy form, ready to eliminate the target with a single precise strike. What he found instead was an empty dwelling. More concerning, his advanced sensors detected traces of exotic energy signatures throughout the building, patterns that resembled Korthak technology, but somehow felt different. Evolved. Improved. A soft chime echoed through the shop. Sylvex froze, recognizing the sound of an activation signal. Around him, concealed panels slid open, revealing weapons arrays that definitely weren't human in origin. Energy signatures spiked as targeting systems locked onto his position. Motion detected, came a calm voice from hidden speakers. Unknown entity identified. Defensive protocols activated. Sylvex moved with inhuman speed, his form dispersing into component shadows as antimatter pulses filled the space where he'd been standing. The energy beams were precisely calibrated, not random defensive fire, but calculated strikes aimed at specific points in three-dimensional space. Someone had been expecting him. The Shadowblade reformed behind what appeared to be a normal workbench, only to discover that the bench was actually an armored barrier equipped with its own defensive systems. Molecular disruption fields activated around him, designed to counter exactly the type of phasing technology he relied on. Impressive, he whispered, his voice like static electricity. But insufficient. Sylvex had eliminated targets hiding behind force fields that could deflect stellar radiation. He'd assassinated beings protected by armies of robotic guardians. One human with stolen technology wouldn't present a significant challenge. He was wrong. The attack came from below, a section of the floor that wasn't floor at all, but a sophisticated holographic projection concealing a shaft that led to the underground facility. Marcus Chun emerged wearing armor that Sylvex's databases couldn't identify, moving with a speed and precision that no human should possess. "You're early," Marcus said conversationally, bringing up weapons that fired concentrated bursts of exotic matter. "I expected Mordan to soften the target first." Sylvex barely evaded the first volley, his form scattering into component molecules. The energy blasts passed harmlessly through empty air where he'd been standing, but somehow Marcus tracked his dispersed essence with perfect accuracy. Molecular phase shifting, Marcus continued, adjusting his weapon's frequency. "Useful trick. I had a lot of time to study it after Titan Station." The next blast struck Sylvex while he was still in phase shift, something that should have been impossible. The exotic matter disrupted his molecular cohesion, forcing him back in a solid form, just as Marcus activated a containment field. Trapped within the energy barrier, Sylvex finally understood what he was facing. This wasn't a traumatized human hiding on a primitive world. This was a predator who had spent 3 years learning to hunt beings exactly like him. The Korthak used phase shift dampening fields on their command ships, Marcus explained, studying readouts on his armor's display. "Took me 18 months to figure out how to miniaturize the technology. Another 6 months to improve the efficiency by 40%. Sylvex tested the containment field, finding it remarkably resistant to his disruptive abilities. "You cannot hold me indefinitely, human. My associates will detect my capture and respond accordingly." "Actually, they won't," Marcus replied, manipulating controls on his gauntlet. "Your stealth systems are still active. As far as orbital sensors can determine, you're moving through the building according to your original infiltration pattern." Amazing how cooperative stolen technology becomes when you understand how it actually works. Above them, Mordan the Planet Killer waited in his heavily armed ship, monitoring the mission's progress through encrypted communications. His displays showed Sylvex moving methodically through the target building, exactly as planned. The elimination should be completed within the next few minutes. What Mordan didn't realize was that the signals his instruments were receiving had been perfectly replicated by Marcus's electronic warfare systems. The real Sylvex was trapped in a containment field 3 levels underground, providing Marcus with direct access to all of his equipment and communication protocols. "Ow!" Sylvex demanded, his shadowy form rippling with contained fury. "Human technology cannot. Human technology couldn't," Marcus interrupted. Past tense. 3 years ago, I was using projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Basic stuff. But funny thing about humans, we're really good at learning from our mistakes. Marcus activated a holographic display showing detailed schematics of Sylvex's equipment, molecular composition, even his species' biological weaknesses. "Did you know that shadow blades are actually photosynthetic? Your people evolved on a world with 3 suns. Constant exposure to full-spectrum radiation is essential for maintaining cellular cohesion." The containment field's interior suddenly flooded with a specific wavelength of darkness. Not mere absence of light, but actual negative photons that actively drained energy from anything they contacted. Sylvex felt his molecular structure beginning to destabilize as his body was systematically deprived of the radiation it needed to survive. "Stop," he gasped, his form becoming increasingly unstable. "You don't understand what you're doing. I am protected by the Galactic Assassins Guild. Killing me will bring retribution beyond your comprehension." "I'm not going to kill you," Marcus said calmly. "That would be wasteful. You're going to help me send a message to your friends upstairs." With practiced efficiency, Marcus activated override codes that forced Sylvex's communication equipment to broadcast on emergency frequencies. The message that went out to Mordan's ship was brief and to the point: target eliminated. Proceeding to extraction point. What the message didn't mention was that the extraction point was actually a carefully prepared trap that would give Marcus exactly the advantage he needed against an opponent with enough firepower to destroy small moons. Your associate will assume you've completed the mission and are withdrawing from the area, Marcus explained. He'll lower his ship's defensive posture and move to the rendezvous coordinates I'm transmitting. Standard guild protocol, according to the tactical manuals I downloaded from your systems. Sylvex watched in growing horror as Marcus accessed information that should have been impossible for any non-guild member to obtain. Those protocols are protected by quantum encryption. No alien technology should be able to, you're right, Marcus agreed. Alien technology can't break quantum encryption. But human creativity combined with 3 years of reverse engineering capture equipment? That's a different story. Above ground, Mordan received the extraction signal and began adjusting his ship's course. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The target had been eliminated with minimal complications, and soon they would be claiming their 50 million credit fee from the Galactic Council. In the depths of the underground facility, Marcus was already preparing for the next phase of his counterattack. Phase shift technology, quantum communication protocols, and molecular disruption weapons were impressive tools. But they were still just tools, and humans had always excelled at finding new ways to use tools. One down, Marcus murmured, watching tactical displays that showed Mordan's ship approaching the prepared ambush site. 2 to go. Sylvex the Shadowblade, one of the galaxy's most feared assassins, could only watch helplessly as his target prepared to eliminate the rest of his team with the same methodical precision he'd used to destroy an entire Korthak battle fleet 3 years earlier. The human hadn't been broken by trauma. He'd been learning. Mordan the Planet Killer received the extraction signal at precisely 0359 local time and immediately began adjusting his ship's trajectory toward the designated rendezvous point. The massive vessel, bristling with weapons capable of reducing continents to slag, moved through Earth's atmosphere like a predator responding to dinner bells. His ship's name was Worldrender, and it had earned that designation by sterilizing 14 planets across 7 different star systems. Mordan himself was a walking arsenal, 8 feet of cybernetically enhanced muscle and bone, with enough implanted weaponry to level city blocks. Among the Galactic Assassins Guild, he was considered overkill for anything smaller than a planetary government. For a single human, he was supposed to be absolutely unnecessary. Target confirmed, eliminated. He transmitted to Kriya, who remained in high orbit awaiting her turn. Sylvex performed efficiently, moving to extraction coordinates. What Mordan didn't realize was that the extraction coordinates he'd received weren't random. Marcus had chosen them very carefully, a stretch of seemingly empty desert that concealed one of his most sophisticated preparations. 3 years earlier, after the Titan Station incident, Marcus had quietly purchased several thousand square miles of worthless desert land through shell corporations. To any external observer, it was simply unused terrain. In reality, it was the largest weapons testing facility that had ever existed on Earth, built entirely underground and powered by technology that officially didn't exist. As Worldrender descended toward the landing coordinates, Marcus monitored its approach from his underground command center. The ship was impressive, heavily armored, equipped with shield generators that could deflect orbital bombardments, and armed with enough firepower to crack a small moon. Under normal circumstances, it would have been absolutely invulnerable to anything humans could deploy. But Marcus had spent 3 years studying the wreckage of similar ships. Commencing final approach, Mordan announced over open channels. Extraction in 60 seconds. Marcus smiled grimly and activated systems that had been 3 years in the making. Beneath the desert floor, massive gravitic manipulators powered by reverse-engineered Korthak reactors came online. The technology was beyond anything humans should have possessed, but Marcus had learned that should was a relative term when dealing with galactic politics. Worldrender's instruments detected the anomaly just as its landing gear touched the desert surface. Gravitational fields spiked to impossible levels, creating localized distortions that made the ship's position relative to normal space-time increasingly unstable. What in the void's name? Mordan began, then found himself slammed against his command chair as artificial gravity inside the ship fluctuated wildly. Warning alarms shrieked as Worldrender's computers tried to compensate for gravitational forces that change direction and intensity every few microseconds. The ship's stabilizers, designed to maintain perfect equilibrium in a vacuum of space, were utterly inadequate for dealing with gravitational fields that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Emergency ascent, Mordan roared, triggering thrusters that should have launched his ship back into orbit within seconds. Instead, Worldrender remained locked in place, held by forces that seemed to increase proportionally to his attempts to escape them. Marcus had learned about gravitic anchor technology from studying Korthak command ships. The original design could immobilize vessels up to cruiser class. His improved version could hold something 3 times larger than Worldrender, and it drew power directly from the planet's core through dimensional taps that made conventional engineering obsolete. Attention, Mordan the Planet Killer, came a calm voice over communication frequencies that should have been impossible for humans to access. This is Marcus Chun. Welcome to Earth. Mordan's cybernetic implants immediately began analyzing threat vectors, but his sensors couldn't locate the transmission source. According to his instruments, the signal was coming from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, a phenomenon that violated several fundamental laws of physics. Impossible, he snarled, activating weapon systems that had reduced entire cities to radioactive craters. Human technology cannot produce gravitational manipulation of this magnitude. You're absolutely right, Marcus replied conversationally. Human technology can't. But Korthak technology can, especially when it's been improved by someone who had 3 years to study how it actually works. Worldrender's primary weapons array swiveled toward what appeared to be empty desert, preparing to unleash destruction equivalent to several nuclear weapons. The particle cannons charged to full power, ready to sterilize everything within a 50-mile radius. The beams fired exactly as designed, striking the desert surface with enough energy to vaporize solid rock. What they encountered instead was a defensive screen that absorbed the energy and redirected it through dimensional channels, feeding it directly into the gravitic anchors that held Worldrender in place. Did you know, Marcus continued, his voice maddeningly calm, that Korthak shield technology actually becomes stronger when exposed to high-energy attacks? Amazing design philosophy. Instead of trying to deflect incoming damage, they convert it into useful energy. Mordan fired again, pouring more power into his weapons array. Each blast made the gravitic anchor stronger, pulling his ship deeper into the dimensional trap that Marcus had spent years perfecting. What should have been overwhelming firepower was instead feeding the very system that held him captive. You cannot hold me indefinitely, Mordan declared, though his situation was becoming increasingly desperate. Kriya will detect my predicament and— Actually, she won't, Marcus interrupted. Your ship's transponders are still broadcasting normal operational status. As far as orbital sensors can determine, you've completed extraction and are proceeding to the outer system. Funny how cooperative stolen technology becomes when you understand the source code. Above Earth's atmosphere, Kriya, the Mindripper, received routine status updates indicating that both her associates had completed their mission successfully. According to her instruments, Mordan was en route to the rendezvous point in the asteroid belt, while Sylvex had already departed the system. Everything was proceeding according to plan. What she didn't realize was that both of her associates were trapped in facilities designed specifically to counter their individual abilities, while their captured technology fed false information to anyone monitoring the situation. Ow! Mordan demanded, his cybernetic systems straining to find some way to break free from the gravitational trap. How does a primitive human possess Korthak military technology? Same way I possessed it 3 years ago at Titan Station, Marcus replied. The difference is that 3 years ago, I was improvising. This time, I had time to prepare. Marcus activated another system, and Worldrender suddenly found itself surrounded by a swarm of objects that Mordan's sensors initially dismissed as space debris. Closer examination revealed them to be automated mining platforms, except these platforms have been extensively modified with weapon systems and AI cores reverse-engineered from captured Korthak technology. Salvage drones, Marcus explained as the swarm began systematically dismantling Worldrender's external weapon arrays. Originally designed for asteroid mining, I've been improving them for 3 years. They're quite efficient at disassembling ships, especially when they have detailed technical specifications for the target vessel. The drones worked with terrifying precision, removing weapons, sensor arrays, and shield generators without damaging critical life support systems. Within minutes, Worldrender had been reduced from a planet-killing warship to a disabled transport vessel held in place by gravitational forces beyond its ability to overcome. "This is not possible," Morden whispered, watching his instruments display system after system going offline. "The Galactic Assassins Guild will not tolerate." The Guild sent 3 of its best operatives to eliminate 1 human, Marcus said quietly. "And now all 3 of you are my prisoners. I think it's time the galaxy understood something important about humans." Marcus activated a final system, and holographic projectors throughout the facility came online. Instead of showing Mordan's current predicament, they displayed historical records from the Titan Station incident, footage that the Galactic Council had never seen. The recording showed Marcus 3 years earlier, younger and less experienced, watching in horror as Korthak ships began systematically executing civilian miners. They showed him making desperate calculations, realizing that conventional weapons couldn't stop 47 warships designed for planetary conquest. They showed him making the decision that haunted him every day since, sacrificing 800,000 innocent people to prevent the Korthak Empire from enslaving 8 billion more. "You want to know how 1 human destroyed an entire battle fleet?" Marcus asked. "It wasn't because I was some kind of super soldier or secret weapon. It was because I was willing to do what needed to be done, regardless of the cost." The holographic display shifted, showing technical readouts from Worldrender's own sensors. The data revealed weapon signatures, shield frequencies, and tactical capabilities that matched perfectly with equipment Marcus had installed throughout his underground facility. "I spent 3 years learning how to fight like you," Marcus continued. "Learning how to think like you. Learning how to be more efficient at killing than any of you ever imagined possible. And now I'm going to teach the rest of the galaxy the same lesson I taught the Korthak Empire." Mordan finally understood what he was facing. This wasn't a traumatized human hiding on a primitive world. This was something far more dangerous. A human who had learned to wage war like a galactic civilization, but still thought like an individual who had watched innocent people die because he hesitated for 3 seconds too long. "What do you want?" Mordan asked quietly. "I want you to carry a message back to the Galactic Council," Marcus replied. "Tell them that Earth is under my protection. Tell them that any attempt to threaten human civilization will be met with exactly the kind of response they sent to Titan Station." High above, Kriya, the Mind Ripper, continued to receive false status reports, completely unaware that she was about to become the final demonstration of why assassinating humans was a very poor strategic decision. Kriya, the Mind Ripper, maintained her position in high orbit, monitoring communications with the methodical patience that had made her the most feared psychic assassin in the galaxy. Unlike her colleagues who relied on physical weapons or technological advantages, she killed with pure mental force, shattering consciousness itself from distances that spanned star systems. Her ship, Silent Death, was smaller than Worldrender, but infinitely more dangerous. Its hull was lined with psionic amplification crystals that could focus her telepathic abilities with surgical precision. She had eliminated entire planetary governments without ever setting foot on their worlds, simply by reaching across space and erasing their minds from existence. Against a single human, she represented the ultimate overkill. Status report, she transmitted to her associates, her mental voice carrying undertones of barely contained power. The response came immediately. Both Sylvex and Mordan confirmed mission completion and reported departing the system according to schedule. What Kriya didn't realize was that the responses were being generated by Marcus's electronic warfare systems, fed by information extracted from her captured colleagues. Every communication protocol, every authentication code, every subtle nuance of guild procedure had been perfectly replicated. Commencing final elimination protocol, she announced the controllers back at guild headquarters. Target will be terminated within the next few minutes. Kriya extended her consciousness toward the planet below, searching for the mental signature of Marcus Chun. Human minds were pathetically simple compared to most galactic species, linear thought patterns, emotional instabilities, and virtually no natural psychic defenses. Locating and destroying one should have been effortless. Instead, she found nothing. More precisely, she found a complete absence where a human mind should have been. Not death. Death had its own distinct psychic resonance. Not unconsciousness. Unconscious minds still generated detectable neural activity. This was something else entirely, as if the target simply didn't exist on any level that her abilities could perceive. Impossible, she whispered, extending her reach further. Her psychic senses swept across the planet's surface like radar, searching for any trace of human consciousness that matched the target's profile. What she found instead was a trap. The moment her mental probes reached Marcus's location, they encountered defenses that shouldn't have existed. Psychic shields that felt alien yet familiar, consciousness barriers that seemed to bend her attacks back on themselves, and, underneath it all, a presence that radiated the kind of focused lethality she'd only encountered once before, during her brief contact with a Korthak battle mind 3 decades earlier. "Hello, Kriya," came a voice that spoke directly into her consciousness, bypassing her ship's communication systems entirely. "I've been waiting for you." The psychic contact was impossible. Humans were supposed to be telepathically null, incapable of either projecting or receiving mental communication beyond their own species. Yet somehow Marcus Chun was speaking directly into her mind with a clarity that suggested extensive training in psychic warfare. "How?" she demanded, immediately raising her strongest mental shields. "Human consciousness cannot generate telepathic resonance." "You're absolutely right," Marcus replied, his mental voice carrying undertones of grim amusement. "Human consciousness can't. But Korthak consciousness technology can, especially when it's been adapted by someone who spent 3 years learning how battle minds actually work." Kriya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature of her ship. Battle minds were the Korthak Empire's most classified military technology, living computers created by merging organic consciousness with quantum processing systems. They were capable of coordinating entire fleets through pure thought, and their psychic abilities exceeded even her own considerable powers. "The Korthak battle minds were destroyed with their empire," she said, though her confidence was beginning to waver. "No examples of the technology survived." "You're wrong about that," Marcus replied. "One survived, badly damaged, almost completely inert but intact enough to study. It took me 18 months to understand how consciousness could be merged with quantum processing systems. Another 18 months to figure out how to do it safely." The implications hit Kriya like a physical blow. If Marcus had somehow merged his human consciousness with Korthak battlemind technology, he wouldn't just be telepathically capable. He would be operating on a level that could challenge her own abilities directly. "Show me," she demanded, preparing to unleash psychic attacks that could shatter planetary defense networks. What followed was unlike anything in Kriya's extensive experience. Instead of the crude, unfocused mental assault she expected from a human, Marcus struck with surgical precision that demonstrated mastery of techniques she'd spent centuries perfecting. His attacks weren't just powerful. They were informed by detailed knowledge of her species' mental architecture, her personal psychological weaknesses, and the specific methods she used to focus her abilities. "You studied me," she realized, struggling to maintain her defenses against assaults that seemed to anticipate her every move. "I studied all of you," Marcus confirmed. 3 years is a long time when you have access to Korthak intelligence files. Did you know they had detailed psychological profiles on every major guild operative? Amazing what you can learn when you have time to decrypt a few hundred terabytes of classified information. Kriya found herself fighting a battle on multiple fronts simultaneously. Marcus wasn't just attacking her directly. He was systematically dismantling the psychic amplification systems throughout her ship, turning her own equipment against her. Every crystal that should have enhanced her abilities instead fed power into defensive systems she couldn't detect or counter. "This is not possible," she gasped, feeling her mental shield beginning to fracture under coordinated assault. "No single consciousness can maintain this level of complexity." "You're right," Marcus agreed. "No single consciousness can. But a battle mind isn't a single consciousness. It's a quantum network that can process information across multiple dimensional layers simultaneously." Through her ship's sensors, Kriya watched in horror as the planet below seemed to come alive with activity. What she'd assumed were normal geological formations revealed themselves to be massive technological installations that had been hidden beneath the surface for years. Energy signatures spiked as weapon systems that dwarfed anything on her ship powered up and locked on a silent death's position. "Welcome to Earth," Marcus said with grim satisfaction. Population: approximately 8 billion humans, plus one very angry battle mind who's had 3 years to prepare for visitors like you. The first wave of attacks came from orbital defense platforms that hadn't existed moments earlier, or rather, had existed but remained cloaked until the exact moment Marcus needed them. Unlike the primitive projectile weapons typically associated with human technology, these were directed energy systems that fired concentrated antimatter streams with pinpoint accuracy. Silent Death's shields absorbed the initial barrage, but Kriya quickly realized that the attacks were perfectly calibrated to stress her defensive systems without overwhelming them. This wasn't an attempt to destroy her ship. It was a demonstration of capability designed to show her exactly how helpless she actually was. "You could have killed me already," she realized. Several times over, Marcus confirmed. But dead assassins can't deliver messages to their employers. Another wave of attacks struck the ship, this time targeting specific subsystems with surgical precision. Weapons arrays, communication systems, and life support backups were systematically disabled while leaving core functions intact. Within minutes, Silent Death had been reduced from a ship capable of destroying mines across interstellar distances to a life raft barely capable of maintaining orbit. "The message is simple," Marcus continued. "Earth is under my protection. Any future attempts to threaten human civilization will result in the complete destruction of whoever authorized the attack, along with anyone associated with their decision-making process." Kriya felt something she hadn't experienced in over 3 centuries: genuine fear. Not fear of death, which was always a possibility in her profession, but fear of facing an opponent who was simply better than her at everything she thought she excelled at. "The Galactic Council will not accept this," she said weakly. "They cannot allow a single individual to threaten galactic stability." "Then, they shouldn't have sent assassins after a species that specializes in learning from their mistakes," Marcus replied. "Humans are remarkably good at adaptation, especially when we're motivated by the right circumstances." Through her failing instruments, Kriya detected something that made her remaining confidence evaporate entirely. The energy signatures from the planet's surface weren't coming from a single installation. They were coming from hundreds of separate facilities scattered across the globe. Each one was roughly equivalent to a Korthak military base, and all of them were operating in perfect coordination. "How many?" she whispered. "How many what?" Marcus asked, though his tone suggested he knew exactly what she meant. "How many installations? How much technology have you hidden on this world?" "Enough," Marcus replied simply. "Enough to ensure that Earth will never be threatened the way Titan Station was threatened. Enough to make any potential attacker think very carefully about whether the target is worth the cost." Marcus had spent 3 years doing more than just studying alien technology. He'd been building a planetary defense network that could challenge any known military force in the galaxy. Not through superior firepower, though he certainly possessed that, but through superior intelligence, superior planning, and the kind of ruthless efficiency that came from watching innocent people die because he'd hesitated for 3 seconds too long. "Tell the Galactic Council," he said quietly, "that humans are no longer interested in being victims. Tell them that the next time they want to eliminate a human, they should probably send more than 3 assassins." Kriya's ship was already being pushed out of orbit by gravitational fields she couldn't counter, carrying her back toward guild space with a message that would forever change how the galaxy viewed the species from the small blue planet in the Sol system. The age of humanity as a minor, primitive species was over. The age of humanity as a galactic power had begun. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 different species sat in stunned silence as Kriya, the Mind Dripper, finished delivering her report. Her ship, Silent Death, hung in the station's docking bay like a broken toy, stripped of weapons, her psychic amplification crystals dark and inert, her hull scarred by energy discharges that shouldn't have existed. "Impossible," High Admiral Zextharov finally managed, her compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays that showed detailed scans of Kriya's ship. No single individual could possess technology capable of neutralizing 3 guild operatives simultaneously. The evidence suggests otherwise, replied diplomat Quenthil, her gaseous form wavering with barely contained anxiety. Sylvex and Mordan are both confirmed as prisoners on the human homeworld. Their ships were captured intact, their technology compromised, their mission capabilities completely neutralized. General Krexvar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed tactical data streaming from sensors throughout guild space. Our long-range reconnaissance confirms massive energy signatures emanating from the Sol system. The readings are consistent with Korthak military installations, but the power levels exceed anything the Empire ever deployed. The chamber erupted in shocked chittering and mechanical clicking. The Korthak Empire had possessed the most advanced military technology in known space. Their battle fleets had conquered 17 civilizations before being mysteriously destroyed at Titan Station 3 years earlier. The idea that a primitive human could not only possess their technology, but improve upon it was beyond comprehension. Show them the recordings, Kriya said quietly, her usual telepathic confidence completely shattered. The holographic display shifted, showing sensor data from her encounter with Marcus Chen. What the assembled representatives witnessed defied everything they understood about human capabilities. The recording showed a single individual operating technology that required quantum consciousness networks to control, systems that should have been impossible for any organic mind to interface with directly. Battle-mind integration, whispered Archon Thulmek, her crystalline features refracting the display's light in patterns that indicated extreme distress. He somehow merged his consciousness with Korthak quantum processing systems. That technology was supposed to be completely destroyed, Commander Velkoth hissed, his serpentine form coiling with agitation. Our intelligence confirmed that all battle-mind installations were eliminated when the Korthak Empire fell. Apparently our intelligence was incomplete, Zexthara replied coldly. The question now is what we do about a human who possesses military capabilities equivalent to an entire stellar civilization. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some representatives argued for immediate military intervention, deploying combined fleets from multiple species to eliminate the threat before it could expand beyond Earth's solar system. Others suggested diplomatic contact, hoping to negotiate some form of peaceful coexistence. A few, led by the ancient ethereals whose civilization predated most others in the galaxy, advocated for a very different approach, complete withdrawal from human space, and a formal declaration that Earth was off-limits to all galactic powers. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Elder Korthes projected telepathically, his energy-based form flickering with patterns that indicated deep concern. My people have encountered species like this before. They appear primitive, insignificant, easily conquered. Then something threatens them, and they reveal capabilities that reshape the balance of power across entire sectors. Surely you exaggerate, General Krexvar protested. One individual, regardless of his technology, cannot threaten the combined military forces of the Galactic Council. Can't he? Elder Korthes replied. 3 years ago, this same individual destroyed the most powerful battle fleet in known space using nothing but improvised weapons and desperate tactics. Today, after 3 years of preparation, he captured 3 guild operatives with such ease that they never realized they were walking into a trap. The Elder's form shifted, displaying historical records that most species preferred to forget. 15,000 years ago, my people encountered a species called the Devourers. They appeared to be simple biological entities confined to a single star system. When we attempted to claim their resources, we discovered that their simple biology included the ability to adapt to any weapon or defense we deployed. Within 50 years, they had consumed half our territory. What happened to them? Asked Diplomat Quenthil. Nothing, Elder Korthes replied grimly. They still exist, somewhere beyond the galactic rim, having consumed everything they found interesting and moved on to other galaxies. We survived only because they decided we weren't worth the effort to completely eliminate. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Throughout galactic history, there have been species that defied conventional understanding, civilizations that seemed primitive until threatened, then revealed capabilities that challenged established powers across entire regions of space. You're suggesting we simply ignore this threat? Commander Velkot demanded. I'm suggesting, Elder Corthes corrected, that we reconsider whether humans actually represent a threat, or whether we created one by threatening them first. This statement triggered another round of heated debate, but it was interrupted by an emergency transmission from Guild headquarters. The message was brief and to the point. All 3 captured operatives have been released and were en route back to Guild space along with their ships and equipment, completely intact and apparently unmodified. He let them go? Zexthera asked in confusion. Why would he release prisoners who possess detailed intelligence about his capabilities? The answer came an hour later, when Sylvex, Mordan, and Kriya arrived at the station and submitted to debriefing. What they reported changed everything the Galactic Council thought they understood about the situation. Marcus Chun hadn't just defeated them. He'd done so while deliberately limiting himself to non-lethal methods. His weapons could have vaporized their ships instantly, but instead had been calibrated to disable rather than destroy. His defenses could have prevented their escape entirely, but he'd allowed them to leave with complete records of their encounter. More disturbing, all 3 operatives reported the same message, delivered personally by Marcus before their release. Tell the Galactic Council that humans are willing to coexist peacefully with anyone who approaches us with peaceful intentions. Tell them that we will respond to aggression with exactly the level of force necessary to ensure our survival, and that we've learned to be very good at making those calculations. It's a demonstration, Elder Corthes observed. He's showing you that he could have eliminated Guild operatives without difficulty, while making it clear that he chose not to. The message isn't I'm dangerous. It's I'm reasonable, but don't test my limits. Commander Velkoth studied the tactical reports with growing unease. Our operatives estimate that the technology they observed represents only a fraction of Earth's total defensive capabilities. Sensor data suggests installations on every continent, orbital platforms throughout the system, and energy signatures that indicate weapon systems capable of sterilizing entire fleets. And all of this was built in secret over 3 years, asked General Krexvar. How did our surveillance networks fail to detect construction on this scale? Because, Kriya said quietly, he didn't build it. He grew it. The installations aren't constructed from conventional materials. They're biological constructs that developed underground using adapted Korthak biotechnology. From orbit, they appear to be natural geological formations until activated. The full scope of Marcus's preparations was beginning to become clear. He hadn't just stolen alien technology. He'd spent 3 years systematically analyzing, improving, and adapting it to create a planetary defense network that could challenge any known military force. More importantly, he'd done so while maintaining the appearance of a primitive, non-threatening world. The question, Elder Corthes said finally, is not whether we can defeat him. The question is whether we should try, and what the consequences might be if we fail. The debate continued for days, but the outcome was inevitable. Faced with an opponent who had demonstrated the ability to capture Guild operatives without effort, possessed military technology that exceeded anything in their archives, and had shown remarkable restraint in using his capabilities, the Galactic Council reached a unanimous decision. Earth and its solar system were formally declared a protected zone, off-limits to all galactic powers except by invitation from human governments. Trade relationships could be established through carefully monitored diplomatic channels, but any attempt to threaten human civilization would be considered an act of war against the Council itself. It was the first time in galactic history that a single individual had forced the entire Council to rewrite its policies. On Earth, Marcus Chun received notification of the Council's decision through quantum communication channels that officially didn't exist. He read the formal declaration while standing in his repair shop, surrounded by equipment that appeared completely ordinary to anyone who didn't know what to look for. The shop looked exactly the same as it had 3 years earlier. Same cluttered workbenches, same primitive tools, same mechanical components scattered across surfaces. The only difference was a small addition to his desk, a holographic display showing real-time status updates from defense installations across the planet and throughout the solar system. Message received and acknowledged, he transmitted back to the Council. Humans look forward to peaceful relations with all galactic civilizations. He didn't mention that peaceful relations will be maintained by the most sophisticated military network in known space, one that could respond to any threat with exactly the level of force necessary to ensure humanity's survival. Some things were better left unsaid. Marcus returned to his work, repairing a simple combustion engine for a local customer. It was satisfying work, precise, methodical, and completely ordinary, just the way he preferred it. Above Earth's atmosphere, automated defense platforms maintained their silent watch, ready to protect 8 billion humans from any threat the galaxy might send their way. The platforms were invisible to most forms of detection, powered by dimensional energy taps, and capable of coordinating responses across interstellar distances. But from the surface, they were completely undetectable. To anyone looking up at the sky, space appeared empty and peaceful, exactly the way humans preferred it.